What's up, everyone? How you doing? Welcome back to another episode of Chat and Draw. What's Chat and Draw, you say? Well, it's real easy. It's a great little show where I sit down across from my virtual drawing table with another creative fan or friend, and I draw a trendy picture of their picking while, you guessed it, we chat. And who am I to even be hosting this show, illustrating these things, and, you know, calling myself a TV host on Chat and Draw? Well, I just happen to be the publisher of Short Fuse Media Group. Great little place where you can get all these awesome comic books. Hit out our website, it's right there. I'm also the founder of Freestyle Comics, one half of the good, the bad, and the nerdy, the most enthusiastic person in comics, aka the Superman brother, Mike Watson, your host today and every day, coming in live from my studio basement in Columbus, Ohio. That's what it is. That's our show intro right there. That's all the business. And right now I'm going to shout out some people that are very special. They're Patreon members, man. Let's give us thanks and shout out to them because without them, thanks, Brad, and I wouldn't have a Patreon page. So shout out to Andrew Duggan, Haley Dennis, Bradley Arney, Tom Kelly, and Unlikely Hero Studios, who just launched a Kickstarter today. Yes, they did, for the Unthinkables #1. Go cop that. I did. Unlikely Hero Studios brings out some pretty awesome comic books, man. I'm a big fan of theirs. So check out their Kickstarter. I'll get that link going and put that in here too because I like those people over there. They're pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right, so we got a brand new episode today. Brand new creator coming on here for the first time that I'll bring out here in a little bit. But we got a little thing for my Patreon people that we got to get out the way here. And it's pretty cool. It's called The Wheel of Names. And we do this thing on Patreon, which is why you want to be a Patreon member, as I'm trying to multitask right here. We do this thing on Patreon where I give the option of, doing kind of like a lottery on what is going to be drawn or what's going to be drawn for the month or whatnot. And I put this up. They throw out some characters. I add them to the wheel of names, and then we get it popping. Hold on. My little thing is taking a second to load, so I apologize. Is it gonna do the thing? Come on. I was so close to being completely ready prior to the show starting or whatnot. I was almost there. I had everything timed out, and then the internet had to strike with the slowness. But it's okay. It's completely okay because those things happen, and we're gonna keep it moving, Captain. Nothing wrong with that. That did not go in the right place. It did not. I'm so sorry. I always want things to be a specific way. So when it's not, it bothers me. There we go. Okay. Now it's coming together. That's the way I like it. Oh, yeah. And we want it. Boom. Hold on. One more thing. Why aren't you doing it? All right. Never mind. I'm going to take it as it is. Bam. It's on there. All right. So let's go ahead and get the wheel of names popping. And I apologize for the delay. The internet or computer sometimes are my greatest enemy. All right. This is what we got on the wheel of names here. Can I get that any bigger? Yeah. All right. This is what we got on the wheel of names. Sorry, gonna do that again, Bradley. We have Nada from that one doesn't count. We have Nada from a movie that Brad suggested, Saber from Eclipse Comics. Brad Arney has suggested Void Buster Hotshot, and we also have the Brown Hornet on here as well. Actually, because Bradley put in a couple entries, I'm gonna even this up here, and there we go. Now it's spinning. Which one will it be? Actually, I kind of was looking forward to that. So I'll be drawing Brown Hornet for the Patreon page, which is awesome. And we can go ahead and take that down. Bam, bam, bam. Now let's get on with our regular scheduled show. Let's get that art up there, or the blank sheet of the paper that I will be digitally destroying. Brad, why aren't you doing it? Doing what? I suggested Void Buster Hotshot. I know, man. I was wanting to do that because my Void Buster Hotshot was going to be a twist. It was going to be something that you weren't expecting, but I'm probably still going to draw that. And I'm assuming Void Buster, Brad Arnie. Yeah, Brad Arnie won. So we'll be doing Brown Hornet. But all right, enough with the pleasantries and the theatrics. Well, not enough with the theatrics, because who could get tired of the theatrics? Let's bring up our guest.
Here comes a new challenger.
Alan Johnson, everybody. Alan, how you doing?
Hello, how goes it?
It goes fine. Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody who you are, why you're on here, and what we're talking about today?
So I'm Alan Johnson, writer and creator of Khajar and Cajaria, founder of Eighth World Comics. What Khajar and Cajaria is a story I created in 2011 that gradually I just kept in my mind after losing in the house fire and everything else and going with life. And then when I rediscovered writing as a passion, I decided that would make a really good story and had to figure out a way to tell it. And I decided comic books was the best way to tell it. And that's what brought us to publishing issue 1 in 2018. And now we've published issue 2 in 2020. And issue 3 is very close to being 50% done in the art department. So that's where we're at right now.
Awesome. You said a fire is where this, like, what happened with that? How did we get from a fire somewhere to these characters that you're making?
So in 2011, I had found a old desktop computer on the side of the road and that's where I was writing the original Khajar and Cajaria concept. Like I said earlier, it was originally intended as like a video game concept where you'd play a character that, you know, you had a scroll down menu of the animals you've bonded with and you'd be able to call upon to use against the poachers that have now expanded into this huge organization that is trying to take over the world and kill and exterminate weak and people that are against their ideals. And from that point, we had a house fire and it basically destroyed all of our belongings minus like a few keepsakes. But that story was lost and then kind of stuck in my mind because it was something I wanted to do. And as I rediscovered writing, I was like, hey, what about that story I was creating? And started writing it again. It got written out as like a TV show script that I had a plan for 3 seasons for. And then I decided the budget would be too extensive to try to shoot something like that at my current level in my filmmaking career. And so I said, well, one way I could do it is through writing and illustrations, and comic books is the best blend of that. So.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry to hear that, man, but I'm also excited that you were able to take that mishap, that tragedy there, and turn it into something forward thinking and keep yourself moving there. That's pretty dope.
I appreciate that. And real quick, I want to give a shout out to Brad Arnie for setting this up for us. We really appreciate it. Yeah, we're new to the whole, getting out there and telling people about what we do, but getting other platforms and ways to go about that because I feel like the story is worth telling.
Hey, well, Brad Arnie is not new to it. He's a huge advocate for indie comic books, man. What's up, Dan J. Quick? What's up, Mally? Daniel, how you doing? Kyron, how you doing as well? Brad and Andrew. Bam, got everybody there. All right, so let's talk about this character, man, that I'm drawing right now.
So the character is Khajar. He is our main character and our hero for all intents and purposes. His story is basically in issue 1, his parents are killed by a group of ruthless poachers that are led by a character I'm quite happy I created called Clyde. I actually have here is Khajar as an action figure.
Oh, hold on. Let's check that out.
And then here is Clyde as an action figure, who is our main villain.
Awesome.
So essentially, Clyde kills Kajar's parents, and they were unaware of the baby. So the baby gets left in the jungle, who gets found by the guardian tiger, Sasha, the tiger queen. And she basically takes Khajar under her wing because she comes from like a circus and understands that not all humans are bad. And because she was like freed by somebody that had seen her situation, and she had had a moment with a human where she's seen that humans aren't all bad, because most of the animals of Cajaria are under the impression that all what they call non-furs are just bad and bring fire in their wake. So they're very, very cautious of their home. But Khajar was brought in and accepted by most of them, except for Toru, the Gorilla King. But Khajar basically, through the sacrifice of his parents, unlocks a power that's in the island Cajaria that bonds with him as a baby. And as he grows up, he learns to harness this power and use it to take on the poachers that are employed by an organization named TERCORP that is bad news because they're basically planning on taking out, sick and weak people by allowing people to pay to hunt them.
Now it says I got a character named Clyde, but he goes by Classic Clyde. He's based on Fancy Dan of the Enforcers. Thank you, Daniel. Let's get that new layer on here. All right, so is there more you can reveal about this power that he unlocks? How is it attached to the island, and is there a specific reason that it attached to our character here, or was it just the rule of the land?
So essentially, back basically during like the Big Bang and everything, and when things first started, there was an ancient and like secret civilization that was kept away from the world, and they were in Cajaria, and they dabbled in like sorcery and stuff like that, and they had locked away their powers on the island Cajaria. And it takes a certain trait and character of a person to unlock the powers that are within the island. And when the parents sacrificed themselves to save the animal that they had saved from the poachers, they basically unlocked the power unknowingly. And since they weren't there because they were dead, excuse me, the power bonds with Khajar. And the way the power works is essentially for every animal that he interacts with and has a moment where he might, help them out and feed them or save them from like a different animal that's trying to eat them or whatever, he bonds with that animal and is able to call upon that animal's trait. For instance, like a tiger's keen eyesight or a rhino's rock hard skin, and just aspects like that he can call upon and utilize as his power grows and he harnesses it more to take on the poachers, who are both bewildered that he's able to like not only use powers, but essentially they're seeing animals that would normally be eating each other collaborate and work together because they're being, planned out with Khajar's character.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. So do we? So you're saying back when dinosaurs and stuff was around, when things were first being crafted, um, this rule was already installed. Do we know who put this here, or do you guys
Not
go into that?
yet in the story. It gets revealed later on in the series. But at this point in the story, we just know that the power was unlocked through the sacrifice of the parents and that it bonded with the character Khajar.
Okay. Well, you can let us know. Like, we're not going to tell anybody. You like it'll just stay on this episode.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, that's what we're working towards. Issue 3. So essentially, issue 1, that's issue 1.
Okay.
Issue 1 sets us up and basically puts us on a course with Khajar's character from the time he's a kid, from the time he's full grown and accepts his power. When we get to issue 2, we kind of skip ahead a little bit so that we left room to go back and tell. And here's issue 2.
Hold on.
So issue 1 and issue 2. Essentially, we're at a point where Khajar is learning who he is and what his parents did, and he's accepted his power, and now he's honing in and harnessing it, but at the same time, he's meeting for the first time the poachers who have come back to the island looking to basically decimate everything there and build their new base of operation. So that's where the need for Khajar to use his power comes in, because he has to fight against the poachers that are trying to take his home, because this is all he's known his entire life.
Mhm.
And basically, later on in the series, we get to a point where we do go in to the past and see, this ancient civilization that, for all intents and purposes, were like the Atlanteans or something along those lines, because essentially what Cajaria is the Bermuda Triangle. That's where the inspiration for the island Cajaria came from, at least.
Mhm.
And so everything that happens on this island is different than how it's happened in the rest of the world. Like, for instance, we do have traces of prehistoric life still present and thriving in Cajaria, because it's been able to go for a certain amount of time untouched by mankind.
Okay.
Or at
And
least
was that always going to be the thing from the beginning of its inception?
yes, that was always the plan for it. As we've progressed and gotten further, I've tried to figure out a way that we could bring the problems of what's going on in Cajaria into the real world, so to speak, of Cajaria, because right now, up until issue 2, we're still just focusing on what's going on the island. But in issue 3, we get to the point where we're opening up and expanding what's going on, where TERCORP has different locations and what they've done to other people, not just Khajar's parents, and how that all comes together is basically expanded upon the first 20 issues. And then when we get done with the first 20 issues, the plan is to go back and tell, what was going on back in the day when they first created the power that Khajar gets. Or we have a plan to tell the story of some of the animals that have backstories and weren't always on the island Cajaria. Like, for instance, like I said, the Tiger Queen Sasha, she comes from a circus. Toru, the Gorilla King, is actually a gorilla that was like being transported from a ship from a zoo because he was deemed like too violent to keep in captivity. So they were taking him to somewhere close to where Cajaria is located, but because he's violent and got out, he basically washed ashore on the island and fought the original Gorilla King and killed him and took over what would have been that gorilla's position.
Okay. All right. So, Mally says, "Oh, Cameron, what's up, man?" Says sounds like the Congo. Mally Sim says it's like Tarzan meets Vixen. Oh yeah, I can see that. I see that.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people compare it to Tarzan. Um, there is one adaptation of Tarzan where it's like actually Tarzan having a power that kind of the way they did the visual effects to it kind of reminded me of where I was at with my story, but I wanted to separate it from Tarzan as well. And that's where a lot of the backstory for a lot of like TERCORP and everything else comes into play. Um, but essentially, the character is a boy in the jungle, which is like Tarzan or Jungle Book or anything like that. Um, but what's different is how he interacts and bonds with the animals and actually forms relationships with them, and is able to basically evolve his natural human state into that of like an animal trait by his power.
Hmm.
Like eventually he'll have what I'm calling right now beast mode, but that's where he's like, or berserk mode, but that's where his animal instincts are just fully kicked in. And that's amazing.
Oh, thank you. Straight Monster Island.
And like, I always like thought it would be cool to like envision Khajar up against somebody like King Kong or Godzilla, because like the way his power works, if he was able to bond with one of those type of creatures, then it would just be like massive overkill. But
Mm. Okay. All right. I see where you're going with that. Yeah. That
so
would be kind of interesting.
that's why we started incorporating what we're calling the like ancient guardians that were around back when this original civilization was around, and that they were basically praying to as gods. Like we have in issue 6 coming a basically griffin, a lion, and an eagle hybrid,
Hmm.
uh, that will be basically our day god. And then our character Clyde, who basically in the point of issue 1 to issue 4 kind of gets lost in this what you could call hell pit, um, and taken prisoner by. Thank you. Um, but yeah, so he gets this power given to him, and that's why he becomes our villain, because he gets a power given to him from basically the devil that was locked away in the Cajaria prison. That is something we call the Forever Fire. Um, that's what issue 2 is all about, is them having to go to the Cajaria temple and find the Forever Fire. And on the way, that's where Khajar has his first meeting with the poachers, and the the one that killed his parents is like remembering back in the day what happened, and something about Khajar kicks off his memory, and he starts to think like, what is this kid doing out here? And that's where everything kind of connects.
Hmm. What's the time frame for this? I don't remember you saying that.
So, I mean, like I said, when I did issue 1, I was just kind of unsure of what I was doing with the story and just trying to find a way to tell it. And then when I decided to commit to it and do issue 2, I kind of just wrote out what would be our 20 issue first installment, so I could have the focus of where we're going already established in my mind, so that as we're doing issue 2 and issue 3 and issue 4, I can basically make little edits here and there to make the story more woven. and more connected and counteract anything that might look at something as like a downside or oversight of the story, and basically use where we're going with how we're doing. But essentially, issue 3, I would say we're looking at publishing, hopefully, if all goes well, by February.
Mm-hmm.
And I already have issue 4, 5, 6 picture ready. We're editing issue 7 and 8. So, I mean, everything for the story, as far as the story is considered, is pretty much all there and done, ready to go for this first 20 issues. It's just affording the artists and the printing and the shipping and everything in between that makes the timetable a little uneven for us to actually put any hard dates on.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, as long as I'm able to put money into it, it's going to be coming.
Okay. All right. So did you guys come up with any alternate plans to just get the material out? Like just a digital release of it to try to build the money up to help with the actual physical printing of it?
I thought about doing the digital route. We're dabbling in crowdfunding for the first time, really, because up until issue 2, it's all just been coming out of my pocket, basically. But the goal is to be able to get us to a point where it's sustaining itself almost, to where it's not just us putting a bunch of money into it and time and no return. Obviously, that's the goal with anything, but I mean, the story is worth it for me. I could get a job and dump a bunch of money into this and be totally happy with how it goes, even if it's, we're putting an issue out once or twice a year.
Okay.
That's like worst scenario, but that's like worth it to me because I mean, I'm still telling my story. I'm still getting the basis out there, and I'm not having to sacrifice my creativity or anything like that. But I mean, if we can get to the point where we're in shops or we're getting a return to where, I'm able to not pay in chunks, but pay the artist everything all at once, or, they're actually getting something in royalties because it's actually selling, then it would be worth it for us to stick to it and keep going. I mean, it's worth it for me either way, but it's
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, like it's worth it for me either way to put it out, but it's being able to make sure the people that I'm doing it with are taken care of, and that, things are actually progressing and it's not just people being expensed at my dime.
Bradley's asking, how's Portoria coming along?
It's story ready. That is essentially Pottoria. Essentially, that's going to be like a stoner buddy comedy about how the world is just in a total chaotic state where everybody's fighting and people are just like basically killing each other for no reason, and things are just totally crazy. And scientists are trying to find a way to basically preserve human life, and they've discovered life forms on a giant nug of weed. And so they're like, well, what if we find a way to shrink people down and put them on here and see if they can coexist with these life forms, and everything would be all good. So they decided to test the theory and shrink 2 stoners down to be placed on the nug of weed. And as the stoners are on the nug of weed, they start fighting amongst each other, and they have already like basically become the leaders of the life forms because the life forms have like insuperior intelligence to the stoners. And basically, once the stoners start fighting, the life forms choose sides and start going to war on the nug of weed that catches the nug of weed on fire. and gets everybody else in the world high, and they stop fighting and stop killing each other, and they're just like, why were we even fighting in the first place?
And you said this one's story ready?
It's story ready, yeah. I just haven't had the artist commit to doing the artwork yet, because we were crowdsourcing that one on a platform called Indie Crowdfund, that basically the developers decided they didn't want to go forward with the site. And but I'm talking to a couple dispensaries I have here in Portland, Oregon, that might like basically put up the funds for us to do like a standard print run.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then we'll do it all the way, and I'll have the artist commit to it. But right now, my artist's primary concern is Khajar.
That one's pretty interesting. I think that would actually make a pretty fun, like, limited series, like a sitcom style. Well, not sitcom style, but like something for Amazon Prime.
Yeah. I mean, like she's already done a cover for it, which if I had a way to screen share, I could show. But
Go ahead. You have the option down at your screen.
I don't think. Share screen. Share screen. It's not gonna work. But anyways, we already have the cover done, and there we go. But yeah, I mean that's kind of like a side project, really. I think it would do really well as well, just because I know people that would totally dig the story. That also comes from an idea I had when I was younger. But I think it's totally relevant right now with everything going on, that it would be pretty interesting to see what would become of it. And the characters, I feel like, could be like almost like a modern day Jay and Silent Bob.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I have multiple stories that I have just waiting until I have the funds to pay an artist to do, because I have the capability of writing stories all I want, but I mean, to actually put out a comic, it takes artwork and everything else, and that takes me hiring somebody, and so that's all coming at basically quantities that I could afford to work in and not feel like I'm, one, taking advantage of the artist, but two, like, not feel like I'm wasting time and resources.
Okay. Absolutely understand that.
Because, I mean, without the artwork, my stories are just words on paper. But, yeah. I mean, I have one concept that comes from a short film I did called Carney's Run Red that would basically be a P.T. Barnum inspired, like, horror story. But with, like, comedic elements to it.
Mm-hmm.
I have another called, I'm thinking of calling it Relinquished. I still haven't decided on the name, but essentially there's like spellcasters that each have like a smoke formed beast that they're able to summon, and some of them use it, to stop the evil people, but some of them use it to like hurt people or get what they want out of life. And then I have another one that I've wanted to do for some time that would be almost, you could say, along the lines of something like Heroes. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, but
I've seen that show. It
yeah,
was so good for 10
yeah,
minutes.
right. The first season, um, but like essentially it would be called Making a Difference, and it would just be about a bunch of characters that all somehow gain almost like mutant like abilities that use it to make a difference. I mean, my whole thing is trying to tell stories that mean something.
Hmm.
So I look for ways that I could do that in my, like, for instance, like with Khajar, the whole purpose is to bring attention to, poaching and stuff like that, but in like a creative and entertaining way.
Hmm. So where does that come from? Your love to tell these stories. Where does that originate from? Why are you using this as your outlet to tell these stories, or to stand up or educate people about these things in the world?
It's a really good question. Um, Essentially, where it came from was I've just always liked writing stories, but in 2013, roughly like a year and a half after the house fire, uh, I was in a rollover car wreck and basically hit that point in life where you realize that, time can be short and you don't get to do all the things you want to do. So I decided that if I am going to do something, I want to do something that, means something and has a message to it. So I decided one way I could do that is, tell a story that resonates and maybe inspires somebody to do something. That's where filmmaking came to my basic passions. And then through that, I decided what I really like doing is writing. And that's where, going full force into comics came, because I decided, I don't have to do it in a necessary like video medium to make it worthwhile.
Hmm.
Um, so, I mean, as long as the story's there and somebody can take something away from it, I feel like everything else in between was worth it.
Well, that's pretty cool, man. I'm sorry you discovered these things on the back end of tragedies.
But that makes for the best, like, origin story, I guess you could say.
Oh,
But
absolutely, absolutely. I'm just thinking you're having a bit one too many of them.
oh yeah, I mean, I could literally write a book of tragic and messed up things that's happened, but I try to look towards the light side of things, I guess you could say.
Hmm.
But I mean, life is, what you put in. So, if you put your all into something, whether it be comics, filmmaking, pro wrestling, all things I've, traveled and tried to do, and decided that the one thing that actually was worth doing was writing and creating the stories that came to my mind.
Well, that's dope. I like that. I like your attitude. I like that none of this stuff has stopped you from doing, well, number one, finding what you wanted to do, and then not stopping from doing it.
Yeah,
Lots
I
of
mean,
people have quit.
yes, I mean, I've done it too. I've quit on filmmaking because I decided that, one, just trying to keep up with, the latest film equipment or latest like rules and everything else like that, and trying to keep it profitable is damn near impossible. So, like, I decided that I had to, and I was basically forced to, because I was working for a company called I Am on Location that was a startup company, and it was a really great gig. I mean, I was going out recording breaking news on my cell phone. I didn't even have to use all the expensive film equipment that I've spent thousands of dollars on. And I was basically recording videos and uploading it with my cell phone and making like $2,000 a week.
Mm.
But I got comfortable in that position, and the company went bankrupt and didn't tell all the people they had employed across multiple states. And so I was basically put in a position where I did like sell all my film equipment and go back to work and stop doing what I like doing. And I didn't like the feeling of having to stop doing what I like doing. So I decided to figure out what I actually like doing out of those things. And what it was creating the stories in general. So I decided I don't need, a $500 camera with a $2,000 lens to tell a story like Khajar. I could tell it in a story, and all that money that I spent on the equipment can go towards paying the artist or printing or whatever else.
Makes sense. I really do did that. You turn a sour grape into a rose, though. You keep it moving.
Pretty much. Like right now, what I'm doing is it's been hard to like get out there and do it as much as I would want, because I have to do like the day job and stuff like that to keep the bills paid. But I've been starting to basically operate what we're calling the Eighth World Comics and Beyond stand. And what that is we take not only our comics that we create, but any type of art that is made independently, we try to sell out of the stand.
Hmm.
And the funds, like for instance, if an artist gives us their CD, I have some CDs here, right here. Like they give us their music, and we sell it for them, and they make their funds off their music. Or if I had actually in the comic related madness group discovered a kid named Blaine Coleman that writes and draws and creates his own comic books and then goes and sells them. So we reached out and got a couple copies, and I was happy that we were actually able to sell a couple for him and make him some money, like just upon posting about what we were doing with it. I wish the days that we've spent trying to actually do the stand would be a little more, how you say,
Fruitful.
yeah. It's been a lot of days of just watching people walk past with their masks on, just looking at us like, what are you doing?
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, before that, I was always looking at ways to try to help the film community here in Portland. Like I tried to do what I called the Inspired Cinema Night, because my film production company's name was Inspire One Productions. So basically, I feel like by doing what you like to do or love to do, you inspire somebody else to do something that they might not know that they like to do, but
Hmm.
once they see your reaction and the way you're doing it and what you get out of doing it, they decide to try it themselves, and then they discover something that they didn't know, and they go on to do something that inspires somebody else to do something, and then they go on and do something, and it just keeps going like that. And then you create this chain reaction that people are actually aspiring to do something that matters to them rather than just going and punching in at a job.
All right. So, what was the? Well, obviously, but what? How did you get to that idea? Like, all right, let me do this. How did that come about?
Well, with my filmmaking, I ran into a lot of situations where I didn't have, the funds to employ a 30-man production crew or to tell the stories that I wanted to tell in the caliber that I wanted to tell them, because it does cost money and it's very expensive, and you got to feed everybody and everything else that goes into it. And I decided that I wanted to look at ways to maybe open up some of those gaps that other artists face, or maybe some people that aren't artists yet, but will be when they actually discover their passions. And so, I mean, essentially from 2016 to 2018 and a little into 2019, my whole focus was trying to start a nonprofit organization that would have given artists the tools and resources to do their art or work with coaches that are like already established and have a name in the game and can give them pointers and teach them before they get to the point where they're at bat. Because like just from some of the Facebook groups that I've been a part of, I see people that are at, the intermediate level just kind of dipping their toes into something they might want to do, reaching out into these groups that have, established pros in them and getting shit on because, sorry if that's not allowed.
Oh, you're
Um,
fine, man.
but just getting shit on because, they're asking questions that are novice questions or stuff like that. And I was like, well, at one point, these people were all novices too, looking for a way to do what they want to do. So why can't we create a system that prepares people to have all the tools and resources and knowledge to go about their artwork at the highest potential? And so that's where I started. I even started the initial fees and everything and got a book and started reading and everything. But a friend of mine was killed and that derailed that whole situation. But the desire to help artists always remains, because I'm an artist and I know that if I had just a fraction of funds or support that I know is available, I know I could do things and create things that would open so many doors for not only myself but other artists and other people from all walks of life. Like, for instance, the artist that I work with primarily on Khajar is somebody I met on Facebook, and she's in Venezuela, so we don't even interact other than Facebook and everything like that. And so, the things you're able to do today with technology and everything like that, there is no reason why we can't have people prepared and with all the knowledge they have to do the things they want to do by the time they're 18.
Yeah.
It's just creating that room where they feel comfortable doing it, because your whole life people are telling you, this is what you gotta do. You gotta go to school. You gotta go get a job. You gotta go pay bills. You gotta, start a family. You gotta do this. You gotta do that. But nobody ever gives you time to answer that question yourself. Like, what am I trying to do? So I feel like almost in the way that school exists, there should be a building or a location you can go to where there are professionals in the field you have interest in, and that you could actually spend an hour or two picking their brain or doing an activity with that you could actually learn from, rather than just going to college with a broad spectrum that you're just getting an education. We'll narrow in that education on the things that you actually want to do.
So how far do you think you're gonna get with this? Like doing that, making that happen?
I mean, that's like my life. Uh, my
That's
life,
all of it.
my life in picture is basically setting up a system that can be utilized for years on end, that just sets up artists to have what they need. If they need an artist to work with, to, for instance, like me as a writer needing an artist to do illustrations, or if they need, access to that $30,000 camera that they don't have access to because, whatever situation they're in, or if they need an expert that could be like, no, that's not how you do it. This is how you do it, and gives them the blueprint basically and teaches them with that blueprint, then I feel like my life's purpose and mission would have been fulfilled.
how do you know that you reached that goal? Like, how will you know if you achieved that?
I mean, slowly as I've evolved with it, I've realized that I don't think there'll ever be a time that I just feel like I've reached it. I mean, that's part of the reason why I have so many stories in various points of development, is because I'm like, okay, well, this story has this purpose with this message, and I need to get it out. And this message needs to be delivered this way. And so those are all like small ways that I leave that message. But I mean, the overall big picture is to leave it in a way that leaves lasting change. And the way I see that done is establishing the nonprofit organization that I started in 2016 and 17, but was unable to do because I didn't have the financial resources or the contacts to rely on building a board of directors that could oversee such activities of not only because at that time I was a filmmaker, so my main focus was trying to help filmmaking, but that always boiled over into other art forms and how could I help art as a whole. And so I feel like bringing together people from various walks of life with various expertise in certain fields, like for instance having my contacts with filmmaking, I'm able to go in there and find certain people that I trust to teach somebody. And I'm starting to meet people in the comic book industry that would be very, very valuable people to sit down and have a conversation with, for somebody that, for instance, Blaine Coleman, like it would be really beneficial for him to sit down and talk to some of these people because he is creating his comic books. He's already there at his age, is just having the knowledge and resources to do it in a way that's professional and that can be put on bookshelves. That is what makes and breaks his career right now. So if he had all that knowledge before he was ready to make the big jump, then he's going to be okay either way because he's going to be able to do it, and that's what I look for when I make my connections. Is I look for people that can, do something outside of just creating their art.
All right, all right. So you basically out here. You're trying to do your stuff, make your comics happen, also helping people while you're making your comics happen. And the books and stuff that you're making are about educating and helping people. So you're just a straight advocate all day, every day.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, I feel like me doing it is like proof in the pudding that, if you put your mind to something, it can be done. And I feel like if I was out here telling people they can do something, but I hadn't done anything myself, then I'm basically just somebody just shooting their ear off with hopes and dreams. But if I can show them a blueprint and be like, this is what I did and it worked for me, you might have to adapt it and change it in ways that work for you. But if you take this and utilize it, you can do what you want to do.
So are there any plans for your book here, Khajar, past 20 issues? There's 20 issues the goal, and then, move on to something else.
Yeah, I mean, 20 issues is just establishing our universe.
Okay.
And then from there, we'd be able to branch out and go back and tell some of the stuff that we didn't get to tell in that first 20 issues because we were focusing on certain points, or some of the stuff that, was created in lieu of what happened in our 20 issues that leaves the desire to know what happened next, or what happened with some other characters that rode off to the sunset or whatever else. But essentially, this is just to set up who Khajar is and what Cajaria is. And then from there, we're able to go in and tell some of the backstories of the animals. We're able to tell the story of the ancient Kajarian civilization, or for all intents and purposes, the Atlanteans. And yeah, I mean, and then right now in issue 3, we're to the point where we're setting up basically the group that allies with Khajar and becomes TERCORP's like biggest threat in their home, like the home world, like for instance, where their bases are all set up and stuff like that. By bringing public awareness to some of their operations and some of their experiments and how they've basically killed to get what they want. But I feel like Khajar is the type of story that I can go back to just because it was essentially my first actual like creation where I felt like this is something that I gotta tell. So I'm always gonna go back to it almost like it's my Spider-Man or my, Star Wars. But yeah, I feel like the real story with Khajar and Cajaria is the way that we portray human nature and the way that we portray the animals and bonding with those animals. That's where the real heart of the story comes from and what we're trying to illustrate throughout the story.
So, what got you into all this stuff, man? What got you like really caring about animals and wanting to advocate and tell these stories? What was the trigger? What was the thing that started it?
Man, just watching some of the videos and what some of these animals go through. Just for instance, one of the reasons why our main character is a rhino is because I mean the way they cut these horns off these rhinos is straight up brutal, and they do it whether they're alive or dead. They don't care. They just want the horn because it's worth a couple $1,000. And that to me is just like, could you imagine somebody taking your arm for $5,000? Like, like, and I feel like I don't know at what point in my life, but I just feel like at a certain point, humanity as a whole just kind of stopped caring about animals, really.
Mm.
And now it's to the point where we really do face mass extinction of many, many species of animals that just won't be here anymore. And that's why I want to create a sense of awe and inspiration with animals, and that's where Khajar comes from.
Awesome. I think that's really dope, man. I like a lot of the stuff that you're saying, man. I really dig where your inspiration comes for everything. Guys, ladies, gentlemen, all people watching now or watching on replay, I went ahead and put the links up into for his #1 issue and his #2 issue. You can buy those live right now. I just put the links down there in the comments. So go check those out. I think this guy is pretty damn cool, man. I like the stories that he's trying to tell. I like his inspiration and stuff like this. And Alan, here's your character, man. I hope you like it.
Yeah, man, that's amazing.
Thank you very much. I was supposed to put these links in there earlier, man, but I got caught up in the art, man. I was having fun listening to you talking, getting into the piece.
Thank you so much, man. Like, this is amazing. And thank you, Brad, if you're still watching.
I think he is. And thank you to Brad too. And Brad's a good advocate for indie comics, man. He's gotten a few people on the show, courtesy of him. So man, shout out to Brad for making things happen. I will get this over to you, man, and this is yours. You can do whatever you want with it or whatnot.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate that, man. Man, this is super fun, man. But there's the links. I've posted them in there in the comments. Go click on them. Check the story out. Number 1 and number 2 issue already out for publication. Third issue is on the docket to be done immediately. Art, he said, is already done. They're just trying to get some things cleaned up on there to get that third issue out. Let's show some support and love for this guy. Go out there and check him out. And Alan, where can they catch you on social media before we go?
I'm on Facebook. I check it daily. I'm very bad, however, about other social media platforms. But yeah, I mean, I'm on Facebook. You can find me in the Comic Related Madness group. The links are there. We have a campaign on Indiegogo right now, but I think we're going to stick to just kind of like putting it out ourselves and trying to control the flow, basically. But so the blurb links are the best way to get your copies. We also have a motion comic on YouTube for issue 1. We plan to do. It's on YouTube. Just type in Khajar and Cajaria. That's KHAJARINCAJARIA. Yeah, and thank you guys for having us. And if you're watching, we hope you pick up the story and read it and like it. And we're going to continue to put it out one way or the other.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. And to close up the night, I am Mike Watson. I've been doing this thing called branding. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but go ahead and give me a follow at Most Epic Art at Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, TikTok, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. I'm doing stuff like this all the time. This week, man, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all booked. We're closing out October strong. All right, we're closing out strong. Tomorrow, Lawrence King James is back in the building. Lawrence is back in the building. We got some crazy 3-person crossover Kickstarter happening. My friend and buddy Lori and Unlike a Hero Studios is in the building on Wednesday, and Tony Clapper is closing out on Thursday night. Man, it's going bananas on Chat and Draw virtually. Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot, and I've decided I'm going to use social media and my audience to help me get these things done, because I've been so busy, and then like a week, like this last week, it was like real lax, and then all of a sudden on Sunday it just wasn't lax anymore. So I've got to make a list of all my stuff, which I have up on my door right now, but I'm going to do one on social media and have you all hold me accountable as I check these things off and try to get these things done. I got a lot cooking in the oven. But join us tomorrow, 7 p.m., same time, same streaming channel as we get back into it. I want to thank you all for tuning in and joining us. Please give this post a share and a like and a comment if you feel those ways. It helps me out. It really does. Twitch, I'm coming for you. I think I'm over 50 followers now, and I need everyone that has Amazon Prime to give me a follow. It's free. It's a free follow. Give it to your boy. All right. I'll check y'all later. Most Epic Art on all social media. Get it.